Colin, I know we had a chat the other night about it. Vet Wings, Vet Tips. Now, I'm going to apologise officially here to the other 6 people involved because I thought it was just you and Lizzie, the driving force behind them. So, as I say, for the other 6 people involved, my apologies. Obviously, you guys were relatively instrumental in getting it involved and have certainly been part of the driving force of it. Yeah, just tell us a bit about Vet Wings, why it was set up, what it does. This is your opportunity really to put a play out for people to support it.
Great. Yeah, we launched Vet Wings. It's just over a year old now. So we launched it just at the beginning of lockdown, and it was a scary old time, and students were finding EMS placements cancelled left, right and centre. And there's also a time when maybe there was some of the discussion about EMS and the benefits gained from EMS was just being maybe questioned or reassessed. And my experience is I learned to be a vet at the foot of mentors. I started going in their consult rooms from age 15, and the poor buggers, I barely left for 7, 8, 9 years. And so it was of huge value to me, and that sort of apprenticeship style of learning to be the art of veterinary practice, certainly, but also a lot of the sort of the basic skills of practice come from there. So I'm a passionate believer and supporter of EMS. Sometimes I lapse into calling it seeing practice because I'm an old man, but I'm a passionate supporter of it. And so that early start of lockdown, I think a lot of people we were all looking for something positive. You feel like you want to help, and so people were volunteering. Or there was talk going around about oxygen generators and ventilators and stuff like that, and there was a huge feeling from the veterinary profession we all want to help. And so kind of Vet Wings was a little bit, it was my way of helping, but it was also a way of preserving that relationship where vets in practice want and love showing and passing on that sort of baton of knowledge or baton of expertise, or their top tips, or their something that has clicked for them, or something that they feel that they do well or they understand. We love, or the vast majority of us love, being able to pass that on to students. So Vet Wings is just purely and simply vets post cases or tips or hints. I posted a video up last night or night before of drawing out a cranial draw and tibial compression test. It's got many thousands of views. 750 students on there are saying this. This is a nice explanation. We drew on the anatomy on there. And so the uplift that you then get sort of selfishly from that, there are Vet Wings has 11,000 vet students on it now worldwide. So Facebook has that little translate thing. So they're writing in foreign languages saying this is really great and tagging other people. And I was chatting in the admin group. I've sat from my sofa and doing that little filming on Reva the Terrier's knee. I've taught people in different continents, or helped people in different continents, how to diagnose and help their patients. And I suppose that's part of the spirit of Vet Wings. The reward that you get as a vet in posting cases or posting tips on in there is seeing the students interact with them, and you just feel that you've helped. And that's it really, in a nutshell. You just bring people, we're rigorously, it's not clinical rounds. So we do sometimes have to give a tiny little jerk on the choke chain if people want to discuss or reassess what information is being presented. But it's really important for Vet Wings that students see that general practitioners, this is what is happening in general practice. It's not necessarily the university textbook taught general practice, although I think those are getting much closer, that awareness is getting much closer. But it's also an opportunity for students to see and assess, well, you know, this is the sort of style of practice that I'm going to be stepping up to and to be part of, not necessarily to emulate, but I think sometimes students have a feeling that all these practitioners are these gods and goddesses and they're capable of doing absolutely everything. And so they can be a little self-critical if maybe you miss that 13th differential diagnosis off the list, and how on earth could I have fallen? So it's good to see what we are all doing in practice as well, and sort of benchmark themselves to that, break down a little bit of fear. But yeah, it's just a positive space really for vets and vet students, and it just helps.
Yeah, I suppose EMS has always been that link between university style learning, trying to drive perfection of differential lists, to actually what happens on the ground sometimes. And I suppose VetWings is trying to provide that, the clinical aspect of that. Obviously, it can't provide the social, the workday organisation, the I was going to say stress, but stressness isn't necessarily the right word, but the balances that happen with work. But what it can provide is the clinical case provisions of what people are likely to see. And this is, I'm putting you on the spot here and going off the plan, but something I've thought about quite a lot recently is that there is a disparity between what you think at various stages of being a vet and actually, or becoming a vet, and actually what being a vet actually means. And I'm not sure whether, and just going to throw this question out there, do you think that's something that's getting wider or getting narrower? So and this is, if I go back to my personal experiences, similar to you, I was in the consulting room from 14, 15 and every Saturday and most of the holidays. And I had a vision in my head of what I thought a vet was going to be like. And probably that vision at 15 to 18 was closer than it might have been at 23 when I graduated, having spent 5 years at university. And when you're out in the thick of it, as it were, the things that you thought were going to worry you aren't the things that worry you. It's the other bits that cause you stress. And yeah, just throwing it out there, do you think that disparity is getting closer or wider apart?
That's also something that's very important to me. I think we've had a similar sort of routine of having access to a veterinary practice, and being able to sort of develop as realistic an expectation as possible of what we're getting ourselves into. And some of the student discussion groups, you know, sometimes we do have to bear in mind that is where people who are in an element of distress go, so it's not a representative sample of the whole of the student body. But there are sometimes questions presented that actually make you question, you know, did you not expect that you'd be stood up for a reasonable part of the day when you're working in practice? And, you know, how have you got to this stage with not grasping the fact that we are a profession that works with people in the company of animals? And, you know, where people are expressing themselves as sort of, well, I don't do people, so that's why I became a vet. And you're like, oh, I fear there is a rocky shore ahead for you, my friend. Is it getting wider? How many vets and vet nurses started with a Saturday job of our generation, or a sort of even if it wasn't a Saturday job, a Saturday go in and plague the practice? Has that been replaced by one work experience week? And practices are having more people for 1 week who then don't go on and into the profession. but when you're sat at 14, 15 and trying to think of something you'll put down that you'd like to do for work experience, vet is one of the things that springs to mind. And an operations systems manager, delivery, something or whatever, all these, vet is still one of those butcher, baker and candlestick maker professions that if you name a type of work, it springs to mind. So I think that concept of the Saturday job and then on progression, or people who come and into a practice or a few practices and gain that exposure, yes, I think that is less. I think our academic, we've got to filter applicants somehow, and academically, I put in my thing for the Royal College. I would rather see 12 weeks of animal experience, veterinary practice experience, and covering a breadth as a way of filtering applicants than 12 A stars. Because fundamentally, I don't think we have to be that clever, but I think we do need to know that the actual reality of the job is certainly not very well portrayed in TV programs, and it's one section, but it's only one certain section, and a lot of what we do is fairly humdrum and routine and involves an awful lot speaking with people, interacting with people. You can be a grey-haired old duffer and maybe not the sharpest clinical tool in the box, and have a far more easy time as working in practice than being an academic, sparkling clinician, but struggling with interaction with people. So yes, I do think that is getting wider, and I do think whilst we do have to broaden out our profession, it needs to be with support for people who have genuine barriers to achieving that experience before embarking on a 5-year very expensive training course. So we support people to achieve that rather than reduce down the amount of experience we expect of everybody, because it's that experience, to my mind, is absolutely key about working out whether this is what you want to do. That's where you find out that people are maybe missing a bedtime. That's where you ask the practice owner, do you mind me asking, how much are you getting paid? That's where I found out that he was getting paid 15 grand less than my parents' first house cost, and that he lived in a farmhouse with his children. Actually, it's a sad indictment of the profession that that level of pay, quantitatively, is not far dissimilar now from what you would be able to achieve even as a clinical director. But I think that's, we're blurred onto something else there, as that certainly needs to elevate as well. But yes, absolutely, we need people to see practice and to see what they are getting into before applying into vet school. And yes, I do think that gap is getting wider in some cases.
You've mentioned council a couple of times, Colin. Now, obviously, you took the step to stand for RCVS Council this year, and I don't think you'll be too offended if I say that you've always been one who's quite willing to share an opinion if somebody's willing to listen. What made you decide that council was the right place for you to share that opinion? Is it a decision you're happy with? Would you encourage more to follow?
I don't know yet. I haven't started yet. I think it's 9th of July is the first meeting. Thank you. That was a beautifully expressed summary. Yes, a little bit gobby is a fair summary. I liked the idea that you put yourself forward and then your peers vote for you. I liked the idea. I loved it when it came out that there was 14 people willing to stand. I'm really disappointed that it was only a smaller proportion of the profession. It's under a quarter who vote, and I think we absolutely have to drive that up. So I like the idea that you can stand and say, look, this is who I am, and these are the things that are important to me. An article had come out, like it's not a case study, is it? But it's a sort of a personality. I can't remember what it's called now. Where basically they write about you and what you've done, what's important to you, and that had come out through Vet Record, or In Practice, I think it was, shortly beforehand. And I'd had a load of nice messages about that. And so I wrote down the things that were important, or I felt was important to me, for the profession, for the future, and then put it out there for my peers to either put a cross in my box or to put their cross in someone else's box. And I absolutely think that's the way it should be. I dislike the sense of sort of there being appointments made to roles and then finding out that things are handed down, and then it just feels like too much of a battle to try and resist a sort of a remorseless drive or whatever. So I like the fact that it was elected. I wanted to give something in terms of support for my profession, and actually, credit, I had done a lot online. There's a VetFest student sort of advice page. I'd written an awful lot of messages on there, which I think come from a position of being very positive about the profession. I had an awful lot of really, really kind feedback from there, and people thought that, or clearly felt that I was helping. And that gave me the encouragement in return. And actually, I posted on there to thank everyone on there. So that gave me the encouragement to step forward on that front. So that's where it comes from. I have had a thing from the RCVS where you have to list on the spreadsheet and say whether you're proficient or not proficient or expert in various roles. And it was a little embarrassing scrolling along there with yeah, not so much. The ability to, the ability to process and analyze very large volumes of information. And I thought, A, that's not so much me, and B, that's probably the poison chalice, that if you put your hand up for that one, there's going to be 150-page documents landing on your lap. So I found some other ones to say that I knew a little bit about.
You dodged that bullet.
Hopefully.
Well, good luck with everything with VetCW and also with the RCVS, Colin, and thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much indeed. Cheers, Phil.